Hey everyone, today I am starting a reading vlog. It's an interesting one. Because I don't know if anyone's been like catching up with either of my Twitter accounts, I've got two now, but I have recently finished the third round of edits for my novella, which has solved and resolved a major a major pacing issue with what I was working on, and I finally fixed it and I'm so happy, but I realised I didn't really know where to place it. I think this novella is a dystopian post-apocalyptic book set during a zombie apocalypse. So it's technically not really post-apocalyptic, it's during apocalyptic. I don't think that's the thing, but I've bought this book. I have not seen the Netflix show and I've never read this book, but I was reading some descriptions on it and it's one of like the highest rated in, I think it's post-apocalyptic sci-fi or something. It's also like horror. But I was reading some descriptions on it and I realised that this is kind of similar to my storyline, not fully, but it seems like there's some elements to it where I might be able to benefit. So this reading vlog will be me reading a horror book, which is going to go wonderfully well because horror is not my jam at all. I absolutely despise horror. I just can't cope with it. So I'm going to be reading a horror book, but I'm also going to annotate it. So it's going to be a reading / research vlog. And I thought I would bring you along for the ride because it will force me to read the book because I am terrified that I am not going to sleep whilst reading this. But I wanted to get this done in the next couple of weeks because I need to start finding like beta readers and professional editors to go through my work. I have found a company, but I need to contact them for timelines and I need to think of a title. I think I've kind of got it, but I'm not entirely sure if it will work. I don't know if it will fit in with this genre, so I feel like I'm gonna have to do market research. There we go. This is my new book and we are going to read this and see how well it goes. Hey everyone, so I am going to be starting my BirdBox reading vlog. I've already done a little mini intro, so today is June 3rd, it's a Thursday. I have got my lunch, which you've just seen me make, so I've got a bagel and some Innocent Bolt from the Blue smoothie drink. This is a really strange drink. Brief food review in the middle of this video, but this is very odd. I think the mix of flavours is too much, so we've got guava, lime, apple, coconut water and blue spirulina. It's I wanted to try it because it's blue. I don't think I'll be having it again. Yes, my bagel is just cream cheese as well. I don't like putting anything else on it. I think cheese and bread is like all you need. So that is what I'm going for. I am going to be doing some research with BirdBox. I've got my highlighters that Tom bought me and my little pencil case which I bought in France, in Lille in 2012, which has a couple of pens in here which I used whilst I was studying in France and Spain. And this is going to be my little research kit. So I'm going to eat my bagel and then I am going to get some research done. Okay, so I've just read the first 16 pages and also the first chapter of this book. I think it is an interesting start. I've made a couple of notes, I've probably seen, just like stylistic choices. I think it's an interesting use of using first person, and I can understand why, because my own work, which is what I'm reading this for, is has a lot of first person elements in it with some present tense is what I mean. Has a lot of present tense elements in it, but then mine does switch back to past tense because it's in a diary format. The main character Anna, she tends to write recollections of events, which is kind of like reported speech but in a section, so she writes it as a passage of time, so that tends to be past tense rather than present. I don't know if that suits best, but because of that there is a mix between present and past, and I know that that is something that I need to work on and decide if that's the choice I want to make, but I kind of want to show the difference between what she's recollecting and how she's feeling in that sort of immediate moment of the writing of the diary. But yeah, I'm kind of enjoying this. I'm enjoying this first chapter more than I thought I would. There's a lot of suspense and a lot of mystery elements into it, and I am looking forward to getting through this a bit more. I don't know how much I'll be able to read. I don't know what this book's actually about. I feel like there's a lot of characters and maybe some past events that are about to pop up. We've been introduced to 3 characters who are no longer around, Cheryl, Tom and Don, and I feel like they'll probably be mentioned at some point, just because it seems odd that you would have mentioned them. I know that in my own writing I've mentioned a couple of characters that are then not mentioned again, but again that was just a passage of time and a juxtaposition to how the world has changed around a little bit. But I am intrigued to see what happens next with this one, and I am probably going to leave this section here, but I will be continuing to read for the rest of my lunch break. I'm sat by a main road, apologies. I'm going to be reading for the rest of my lunch break, which is about 30 minutes or so. So I'm going to try and get through a couple more chapters and also get some annotation done on this. I kind of want to have this done in the next week or so. I've just flicked through, I shouldn't have flicked through books, but I am interested to see what happens. I'm not sure if this start is potentially the end of a book, sort of like a prologue of how the book's going to end, or if it's going to, or if it is really the start of the entire storyline as well. But I feel like there's a lot of information because it's saying that this is happening for 4 years and that she's brought up these kids for the past 4 years to listen. They've not really been given much use for their eyes, so that they can escape and listen out for whatever it is these creatures are that you've got to be blindfolded from. I'm trying to remember what I've heard about this because, like I said, I've not read, I've not watched the Netflix adaptation. I don't really know much about it, but obviously a lot of people were talking about this a couple of years ago, so I'm trying to half remember what that was about, but I can't fully think of why they had to be blindfolded. But it's an intriguing start to say the least. I kind of just want to sit and read it now. But I will catch up with you guys at some point in the future. Bye! Hey everyone, so I'm giving a quick update on BirdBox. I think it's page 161. Yep, I'm on page 161 so far, and I've been doing lots of scrolling notes. I'll try and get this one showing. So like just little ideas at the bottom, underlining, things like that. I'm trying to sort of compare and contrast this to my own writing, which is weird. I feel like I've like descended back into English literature A-level, which is not a place I ever thought I would end up being, to be honest. It's strange how the world works like that. So I am actually really enjoying this book a lot more than I thought I would. I'm enjoying like the tension build up and the sort of psychological aspects to it. So now I'm wondering if maybe I can read horror books after all. Or maybe it's just because I'm focusing so hard on the areas that I really like and what's being done and the sort of juxtaposition between what's happening, and yeah, I'm enjoying the way that the storyline is split between a present day linear idea and then flashbacks to when everything started, which I think was like 4.5, 5 years before the present day line. So I'm really enjoying that. So far it's difficult to compare so much because mine is diary formatted and is very linear. It's very much sort of present day. Everything that we're reading is happening sort of like at that time, but not really. So it's an interesting one to have picked up. I especially like the aspect of motherhood in here, and how being a mother has sort of shaped Mallory's experiences and how she's going through with it. I am mainly focusing on like the techniques that I'm enjoying, so like the sharp, snappy sentences, the one-word sentences, and the way that the paragraphs are being switched up. And I'm wondering if maybe that's more of what I could use as like a technical sort of piece to it, and using the sort of like technical side of writing to create that tension, because I know that pacing was something that I was worried about, so I'm not sure if this could potentially be the answer to it. But I am enjoying this book so far. I'm really enjoying the actual storyline of it, and I think I'm gonna have to read the Netflix read. I'm gonna have to watch the Netflix adaptation of this when I have finished, but not until I've finished, because I want to sort of like absorb it. And hey, maybe this will become part of my book adaptation series as well at some point in the future, because I am actually really enjoying this. I might go into it and do like a more spoilery review at some point, but I've not decided yet. But that was my little update. I think so I'm about halfway through. About halfway? Yeah, that's about halfway. I can't wait to get through more of it and hopefully finish this sometime soon. The world has changed. There are reports coming in of people going mad. Don't look outside. If you see them, will you survive? Mallory doesn't believe the information coming in from the news. Not until she's forced to face reality. Responding to an ad for a safe place to live, she finds herself 3 months pregnant and driving across the city to what she hopes is safety. So it turns out my reading vlog for BirdBox has ended up less of a reading vlog and more of a mini reading vlog and review. So I have now finished the book, and I'm going to go through my thoughts on this, and there's going to be some spoilers, so I'm going to do the non-spoiler bit first, and then there'll be a timestamp to where the spoilers are, and I'll probably just like go, spoilers, please leave, so that you know to not carry on watching the video any further from that. But I'm going to go through my thoughts on it, and also how I feel this book has helped with my research for my own novella that I'm writing. Firstly, I really enjoyed this book. I think I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. It's kind of got like horror-esque vibes to it, so I wasn't entirely sure if it was something that I was going to enjoy, because honestly, horror and things like that don't really appeal to me. I don't read a lot of them. I don't like watching films or playing games like that either, and because of the apocalyptic dystopian vibes in here, although this is a psychological thriller, those two subgenres kind of put me off and thought that I wasn't really going to enjoy it. But I was actually pleasantly surprised. I gave this book 4 stars overall, and I think it is a really good read. And if you're looking to read into this genre or find more dystopian or more apocalyptic books, then this is a book that I would really recommend, because it kind of hits all the vibes that I think you want from those. That being said, I don't know if I would have picked this book up if it hadn't have been for my own novella. I've only read this book because I'm trying to do some research and see if my novella, which somehow I managed to write a novella in dystopian apocalyptic zombie apocalypse world, and I don't really read it a lot. I have watched a lot of zombie films, so most of my information was coming from that area, so I wanted to try and read a bit more, and if it hadn't been for that, I don't know if I'd have picked this book up. So I'm kind of glad that my writing has made me delve into an area that maybe I'm not quite as familiar with. One of the first things that I noticed with this book is that it's written completely in present tense, which was a little bit jarring to start off with, because it doesn't feel as though you're following the characters along. It reads more like a movie script, in the sense of the actions are playing out and you are sort of witnessing them as a third person's perspective looking in. So it was a very strange experience to start off with. However, I think that this actually really worked really well with this book, mainly because it helps to give a sort of immediacy to the situation. The present tense was constantly telling you what is happening in this moment. So although there was a bit of a jarring pushback from the way that books are usually written, I do think that this one worked wonderfully with this sort of style of writing. And it was strange how much the urgency and the immediacy did actually hit into this book, and I think that was one of the bigger parts of creating the atmosphere and the themes within this book and making them stand out more. I don't know if this would have been quite so psychological from a different point of view, because I think we've been able to see a lot more of the world around us. Although it is focused on Mallory, you've got that sort of outside view of it, and even if it was third person in past, I don't know if you would have quite got the same style from it. So although it was a strange choice, I think it worked really well in terms of this writing. Because this book is a psychological thriller, it does actually play on your mind quite a lot. I finished reading this and then that night I started having, not nightmares per se, but whilst I was trying to get to sleep, I was like, oh no, what if there's something outside and it's gonna kill me? So I did kind of fall down that sort of little loop. I think the fact it was able to get into my mind so easily did actually prove how well written this book was, that the anxiety and the worries that you were having as the character, as Mallory, and trying to survive, it did actually start to cross over a little bit into my pre-sleeping sort of mind, which honestly is not a great place. This is the main reason I don't read sort of thrillers and horrors or anything like that, because it just sits in my head and then I can't get out of it and I'm like, so it was a weird one, but I kind of liked the fact that clearly it had such a big impression on me that it did cause those sort of responses in myself when I wasn't reading the book as well. I think Mallory was an interesting character to have as our main protagonist, mainly because she didn't seem overly likeable. There was a lot that you get in the sort of present tense narrative of the past 4.5 years where there's things that she's doing that I don't really like, but at the same time I can kind of understand where she's coming from. It was a very strange sort of position that she found herself in this world where you can't look at anything, because if you do, it will drive you mad. But as much as I disliked her and disliked some of the actions she took in this, I do think that gave an accurate portrayal of how someone might respond in a situation like this. I think it made the character more real, that she was a flawed person, that she did have these flaws, that she did have these doubts, that she did have these worries, that sometimes she made decisions that potentially weren't the best decisions, and I think that just built up the character overall. So although I didn't like her, I think that is also a testament to the writing style and the strength of the writing as well. But it was an interesting choice, and yeah, I did enjoy the character, but I questioned some of her motives and some of the ways that she was doing things, but I don't think that pulled from the story too much. I think it added as an extra layer to the narrative and to the plot and how the entire system progresses. But there was some definitely sort of jarring bits with just the way that she was and how she responded to the two children within the book. Reading through this book did actually help me, because I now feel like my own zombie apocalypse has fallen into some of the themes, or at least some of the atmospheres that you get in this book. Am I surprised by this? Yes, I am surprised by this. I was worrying that mine would not really fit the dystopian apocalyptic genres, and after reading this I now feel that I didn't have as much to worry about. Maybe it still doesn't quite fit into that area, but I think I have put myself in good stead, and I might try and read more just to sort of finalise it, although I'm hoping to have it published this year and it's currently with an editor, so I don't know how much more I can do to it to get that feeling. Maybe once my developmental edits come back I will be able to see what I can do to push this even further into the right sort of area. Overall, I would really recommend this book to quite a lot of people. If it's a genre that you know and love and want to get more into it, I would really recommend it. It does have some sort of horror elements. I think from the psychological thriller aspect it kind of plays on the same feelings and emotions that you'd get from most horror films, and surprisingly I found out recently that Jurassic Park, because it's a techno thriller, is also somewhat classed as a horror, so maybe I'm not as upset with reading horrors as I thought I would be. But I think again, because it's kind of like that crossover line, it's good for quite a lot of different readers. If you enjoy apocalyptic style worlds, I think this would be a really good book for you. I've heard a lot of people saying if you enjoyed The Road by Cormac McCarthy, that then this book will also be a really good book for you as well. But I have not read that, although I watched the film and I didn't really enjoy it because there wasn't a lot happening. So maybe I'll read The Road next, and then I can do a comparison as to whether or not I think you should read BirdBox if you enjoy The Road, or vice versa. Now we are going to talk about the spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled by this, if you've not watched the Netflix adaptation or you've not read this book, please leave the video now. I will not be sad by this. I would be very happy for you to not have to worry about spoiling this. I have heard that the Netflix adaptation does end kind of differently to how this book ends. I'm not going to spoil the full ending, it's just I'm going to go into a little bit more detail with some areas of the book. So if you're not bothered by minor spoilers, although I am going to go into a little bit more detail of some areas that if you've not read the book or watched the adaptation may ruin part of the build-up for you. I can't say because, again, I've not watched the Netflix adaptation, so I don't know quite how much this would spoil it. So the first few things I want to go into are things that kind of annoyed me with this book, and what I don't know if they could have been done better. It's just that it's now like I've got like this empty hole inside of me and I need to know these answers and they're not here, but maybe there'll be somewhere I can find them. The first thing that really annoyed me is the fact that the reason people are going mad is because they are seeing things. Like, there are literal creatures wandering around that you can't see, can see, I don't know. I don't know where they've come from, which is one of the things that annoys me. Why did this suddenly happen? Where have they come from? Are they aliens? Are they like a multi-dimensional creature that we can't comprehend with our own eyes, and that's why it drives you mad, because trying to comprehend it and trying to believe and understand this sort of thing is just causing people to go all crazy? I don't know. But what annoys me is that you never actually get these creatures described. There are at least 2 times within this book where the creatures are pretty much next to Mallory. One is while she is giving birth to a child and they're let into the house and it comes up into the attic where her and another character, Olympia, are giving birth, and and she closes her eyes but she can hear the thing, and then Olympia goes, oh my god, it's so beautiful, and then she goes mad. And then the second time is whilst we're in the present day situation and they are on the river in the rowboat, and they can, the children that she gave birth to one and Olympia gave birth to another, and one of the children says that he can hear something but it's not really swimming, it feels like it's walking in the water. And then he gets into the boat and they've all got blindfolds on, and then she says she can feel it like trying to lift the blindfold off her nose like forwards, and so she pulls onto it on the back and then shouts at it to leave him alone, and it just does. So it's kind of like you spend all this time being terrified of these creatures and being terrified of looking at them because it drives you mad, and then it just leaves. So it's not that the creatures are inherently evil from this sort of description. It's almost as though they're curious. Maybe they're not sure why they're causing people to kill themselves. And yeah, I know it's not overly important to the storyline to know like all the intricacies, although I've read so many books with so much world building in them, that the fact that you don't know where these creatures are from, what they look like, or what their motivations are, it has made me upset. I'm very jarred by this. The second thing that really annoyed me in this book is that a character appears around halfway through, maybe a little bit later, called Gary. He is also a survivor. He has come to the safe house to try and survive, and then it turns out that he is a complete mental case, to be honest. He was in another house and he let the creatures in. He wrote diaries about it. He is a mysterious, nefarious character. He convinces someone else in the house with Mallory to take all the curtains down, all the blankets off the windows, and convinces him to unlock the door and open the door so the creatures come in while she's giving birth and whilst another character is giving birth. And then everyone in the house dies, and it's all because of Gary, but Gary survives. Gary gets out of the attic where he's been threatening Mallory. I don't know, it's really weird. His character is so odd, but he kind of just disappears, and then Mallory has this fear of not just the creatures, but of Gary coming back and trying to do something to the children, and it's just like, who is he? Where has he gone to? What is he doing? And it's just frustrating that he comes in, he disappears, and that's it. He's in this book for like maybe 10% of the book, I'm not sure. He's not in it for a long period of time in terms of the writing, but it's just so odd. I don't understand where he went to. Did he survive? He says something about the way that the creatures work is because you've been told that you'll go mad and kill yourself if you see them, whereas if you don't believe that, you'll be fine. And then he says something about if you're already mad, can they make you go mad because you're already insane? And yeah, so he's just completely off his rocker, to put it nicely. And this is all we're left with. We're left with the consequences of Gary convincing one of the other members of the house that it's fine to unlock the doors and to take all the blankets off the windows. But then he just disappears, and it's really annoying me. I don't know what happened to him. Did he die? Is he like staking out the house? Like what? Because he mentions that he's wandered around and he can see the creatures and he watches them, and he was watching Tom and another character go between different houses with blindfolds on and sticks, and he thought it was hilarious because he's like, why are you doing that? You can just wander around and have your eyes open. I'm like, what on earth is going on? I get that there was some sort of story being told here with Gary. I don't know if it was that madness can only affect those who are sane. I don't know. It was a very strange sort of addition to the book, and it kind of annoyed me a little bit. So those are two areas that I kind of disliked. The first one I don't mind so much, because with it being a psychological thriller, it makes sense, and kind of like in the vein of old school horror films where you don't actually see the creature until right at the end, it makes sense to hide it and to like build up that suspense and the sort of rising tension and anxiety of what is this thing. But the fact that Mallory came into contact with it twice in two very sort of stressful situations, and that was it, it kind of bugged me a little bit, especially the fact that it tried to take a blindfold off and then she shouted at it and it disappeared. And I'm just like, then what is it doing? Why was it following you through the river? And what is going on here? I was very confused by it, and yeah, so as much as I like the idea behind it of not playing your cards straight away and showing the monster straight away, I do think that it caused, there was a lack of tension because we didn't get to see what it was and there was no motivation behind it. One of the things I really liked in this book was the dual narrative style. So we're always from Mallory's point of view, but we're constantly going back and forth from the start of the epidemic situation, the apocalyptic-like style that they're living in. So constantly going from the start of this to the 4.5 years later, because she does mention it, it's sort of like 4.5 years later, so it's not 4.5 years from the start of this, it's probably more like 5.5 nearly, because we start with Mallory finding out she's like 2, I think she just finds out she's pregnant. It's the initial starting point of this virus madness sweeping through the entire world, but because of that we're constantly having to be drip fed information, which means that the foreshadowing in this book is really wonderfully done. There's one part that I particularly like. On page 2 I have highlighted a quote which I'm going to read, and I really enjoy this quote. Looking back on it now, I feel like it has more implications because there's so much that you don't know from this scene as to what has actually happened in this house or how Mallory has come to be in this house. On initial reading of this, I thought maybe this is the house that she's managed to get into to just find some safety and sanctuary, but once you get to the end you realise that it's got such a deeper meaning to it, and the fact that it's been pointed out here I think shows really good foreshadowing through this book, and this was just one example that I really enjoyed. The quote is, "The bottom of the walls in the hall is discoloured, profound purples that have dulled to brown over time. These are blood." So we start off with this quote, and with this thing that's causing people to kill themselves, you're just like, well, people are killing themselves, and this is clearly one of the side effects of this. But when we find out what happens on the night of Mallory's birth, during Mallory giving birth, we realise that this is the blood from people that she lived with, and that blood has been there for 4.5 years. She's lived with these stains, and I just thought when you look back on it, the sort of extra punch that this must have been and the foreshadowing used just from this 2-sentence line, my mind is blown. I just thought this was a really good piece of storytelling and foreshadowing, and I just wanted to mention it. I think a trope was used really well in this book, and that was the idea of finding a safe house / sanctuary, or at least somewhere safe to ride out the storm that is this weird apocalyptic life that they're now all living. This is done in 2 parts within this story, and I think that both of them show Mallory's drive to survive and her ultimate decision to do what's best even if the odds of doing it are terrifyingly low. The first one is during the before times, kind of, when Mallory is sharing an apartment with her sister and they're watching the news is on and it's saying about how people are slowly succumbing to this issue in the United States. It originally started in Russia, and Mallory's calling to her sister and she doesn't hear anything, and then she goes upstairs and finds her sister lying in a pool of her own blood in the bathroom with some scissors in her chest. And this is our sort of inciting instant catalyst for Mallory to go to the safe haven that she saw advertised in the newspaper a few weeks before. So she makes the decision to leave the flat and drive, I think it's across the city, with not being able to see anything or like doing quick looks around, and driving at like 3 miles an hour to try and save her and the life of her unborn child. And then later on, at the 4.5 year mark, the present time, Mallory is again making the same decision, although you don't really know what her decision to leave the house is until pretty much towards the end of the book. This decision is to leave to find another sanctuary that she has found out about just after she gave birth 4.5 years ago, and there is a place for people to go, but she needs to take the river. which is why the present timeline is mainly set on the river and the past is all dealing with the house and also the build up to where she is now. And I think the driving force here is that Mallory is always looking for survival, and I think the use of the safe haven with this shows a really good juxtaposition between wanting to stay where you think it's safe and doing what the right decision is and making the right decision to actually be safe. And I liked that they used that sort of sanctuary trope to envision this, and how the driving force behind Mallory constantly moving is safety and survival, and I just really enjoyed it. Did this book give me any insight into my own writing? I actually think it did. I think despite the fact that I've not read a lot in this genre, I have watched so many apocalyptic dystopian type films and the YA dystopia that you get, so although it's not quite as dark as this, I think that my own novella managed to encapsulate some of the main themes. There is the potential to find safety in a sanctuary somewhere. It's more hinted at rather than any concrete plans. And also I think I've tried to encapsulate the desire to survive whilst also feeling like, what is the point, because the world is how it is now. The main reason I read this book was because I was trying to see if my novella would fit well within this genre, and I think after reading it I am not 100% convinced, but I am more convinced that I have not missed out on any sort of main tropes. I do want to read quite a few more dystopian apocalyptic books in future just to make sure that I definitely have got my genre down, but overall I think this was a really good book, and I know that without my writing I would never have picked this up, and I'm so grateful to the fact that I made the decision to write, especially writing in this genre, because I really enjoyed this book a lot more than I thought I was going to. Towards the end there's like notes, so like the start of this book there's like loads of notes and everything in it, and then you get to the end and there's just like nothing. I enjoyed it so much that I just didn't want to stop to make any notes. I just wanted to carry on reading and find out what happened next, despite the fact that I never found out what those creatures were. So like I said, I would recommend this to anyone who wants to read more within the dystopian apocalyptic genre and also within psychological thrillers as well. So if you like this video, don't forget to give it a like and leave me a comment down below if this is the sort of video that you enjoy watching, and if you would like to see more sort of in-depth discussions and reviews around books in future. And if you do, let me know what sort of books you would like me to do. I'm probably going to do this more for the stuff that I'm researching just for the time being whilst I get used to it, because I've had to make full extensive notes on my tablet today to get this done so that I don't forget anything, because I'm really good at forgetting what I want to talk about. But yeah, if you want to see those, leave me a comment and don't forget to subscribe so you will actually be able to see those sort of videos. I hope you're all well and you're all staying safe, and until next time,